Cool. Okay, everyone, thanks for coming along to our fourth Comfort Zone webinar. And tonight's guest is a business consultant and a career coach. She had a successful career at the multinational Procter & Gamble, which is also in Australia, actually. I have heard of them. She took the plunge to work independently as a consultant with clients including Burberry, Vertu, and increasingly small businesses and startups. And today she mentors entrepreneurs and young managers, whilst also juggling her own 3 businesses. One of those is a digital marketing consultancy, Crocus Communications. She's passionate about teaching people how to engage with consumers using digital media, which we all need to learn about, without becoming distracted or intimidated by the technology, which I often do, I must say. Last year, she co-founded Wolf Leaders Academy, which I've had a bit of a look at, and that is a fantastic thing. We'll hear more about that shortly. That provides management and leadership training for a new generation of managers in the world of business, which is, really great stuff. She's also qualified as a certified professional coach, and she now empowers people through her personal coaching practice, One Step Outside, and empowers them to take ownership of their own careers and transition into becoming an entrepreneur, changing career direction, or following their passion, whatever that might be. She's a published writer with articles appearing on Inc. magazine, Business Insider, and other online publications. Welcome, Anna Lundberg.
Thank you, Kevin. Great to be here with you all.
Great to have you here. For those who don't know you, Anna, can you just tell us a little bit about your early life, your family, sort of growing up, all that kind of thing?
Sure. So I was born to Swedish parents in England. They actually moved to England a couple of years before I was born. The year my sister was born, my older sister, and they were supposed to stay there for 6 years for a contract for my dad, and of course that contract was renewed 6 years, and they're still here in the same house in the UK. So we ended up staying in England. I grew up here, went through the entire English school system, which, as you may know, is quite strict, and I think I sort of followed the good girl path of doing as you're told and getting all the good grades and so on. I did take a gap year after school, which I think was great. I went to Australia, New Zealand, did some work, internships and so on. I think that was great to get a bit of a break after school and see what I wanted to do. Funnily enough, when I was applying to universities when I was 18 before the gap year, I was looking at astrophysics and medicine, which I don't think would have worked out for me. And when I came back, I applied to politics and economics, which for other reasons also didn't work out. But that's what I did at university. So I studied politics and economics at Oxford in the UK, and then I moved to Geneva for my master's degree in international relations. I did an internship at the UNDP, which I loved, in the communications department. And then I usually say that I applied to sort of 99% UN and NGO jobs, 1% private sector. And the job I got was at Procter & Gamble. And at the time I felt like, I needed a job, and I thought, I could get lots of experience in the private sector and then bring that back into the public sector. But 7 or 8 years later, I was still there working at Procter & Gamble, and that brings us up to 3 years ago, as you said, when I quit my job and left Geneva, actually.
Yep. Okay. And which part of England were you brought up in?
In Surrey, so it's about half an hour from central London.
Okay. Is that north or south or?
South east of England,
okay.
southwest of London. It's sort of close to Heathrow, actually.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, I was born in a place called Boreham Wood, which is north of London, near Pinewood Studios.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of area there. So I was only 4 when we left there, but so I've certainly lost my English accent when I was 4 years old. Yeah, absolutely. So 3 years ago you left your comfortable job, to work independently and follow your passion, which a lot of people are too scared to do. So how tough a decision was that, and why did you decide that working on your own was the way to go?
It was incredibly tough. I think the background I just very quickly gave in terms of, that I ended up sort of working with something that wasn't necessarily what I planned to do. I think that was always there, sort of an underlying current of, wasn't what I wanted to do. And I sort of half-heartedly applied to other jobs as I went. And I should say that I loved my job. I met so many amazing people. I learned so much. It was an amazing 7 years at Procter & Gamble, and that's opened all the doors to everything I'm doing now. But fundamentally, there was a disconnect between what I cared about. I'd studied African development, and I was now selling luxury perfume, and that's always sat a little bit difficult. There's a bit of a tension between whether you call it my passion or some kind of deeper meaning and the work I was doing on a day-to-day basis. So that was tough. And then I think when you've been going around saying, oh, I don't want to be here, I want to quit for years, there's just a certain kind of inertia because you just don't do anything about it and you don't believe yourself anymore. So I think, that was difficult, and I didn't do anything about it. For some reason, and I forget what the trigger was really, I suppose it was the timing was quite right for me because at Procter & Gamble you do 2-year assignments. So I was due to change to a different assignment and there was no natural next step for me. And I'd been thinking of going traveling, taking a break. So I asked my boss for a sabbatical and she said yes. So off I went to South America by myself for 3 months. And it was halfway through that I then sort of, after meeting people, doing all sorts of different, making all sorts of different life choices, very different lifestyle and career, it just sort of opened my eyes to another way of doing things. And I think that then gave me the confidence to quit. I knew that if I went back, I would once again get super comfortable. I'd get another job in the company and I'd enjoy it and I'd be with my friends and just be sort of the conveyor belt would continue. So that's what helped me. I think the sabbatical was sort of a temporary landing point before I then took the next step of quitting. I guess in terms of working for yourself, I think initially when I quit, it was just not this. I didn't know what I was going towards. So it wasn't necessarily that I had this big passion to be a painter or a musician or whatever that we always think of some obvious route that I should be following. It was more just not this for now. I did have ideas of, traveling, writing that book that we all feel we want to quit our jobs to write a book. I started going to a few interviews for other jobs, and I thought maybe it's just a question of changing industry and I'll be more sort of motivated. But it was after one of those interviews in particular, I just felt, no, I'm just falling into the same trap again. So that's when I officially incorporated my business. And I guess what I was escaping towards was more freedom. Freedom is just one of those words we talk about a lot, but it's one of my core values, I've realized. And I think working for yourself is obviously a great way of having that freedom and flexibility.
Oh, I've found that myself. I mean, I just recently quit my job of 10 years in immigration, and look, it was a great job as far as freedom goes, because the last 2 years I was just I was on call basically, still getting paid full time, but just sitting at home and doing my own thing. So it was fantastic. But there comes a time we got to say, hang on, it's time. I just can't keep working for somebody else. And I've got this burning sort of desire inside to be my own boss basically, and really get out there and help people. And sometimes you just have to cross that line and say, right, this is it. There's no more stopping around. It just gets to that sort of boiling point where you say, no, that's it, time to go. And I know you like your travelling, and you spend a lot of time doing that. How does that fit in with all your businesses? Can you obviously work around that? And
yeah, so initially, I guess, like I said, I did the sabbaticals. That was kind of an escape, and it was a time to think about life and read books and talk to people and so on. I think after that, I started doing lots of contracts actually. And then what happened was I would have a big contract, and then I'd take a month off to travel. I'd have a contract, I'd take a month off. And for the past year, I'm trying rather to integrate the travel with my work. So I'll travel. It's independent of the work. It's not that I'm actually, I do blog about my travels, but I'm not earning money on the travel. So it's just, I'd like to go to San Francisco, and then I try to manage my businesses while I'm there. So for the last year and a half or so, I'm nomadic, I guess, working from Starbucks and Airbnb and so on.
And when you're on your own, or running your own business, a lot of fears come up, especially early in the piece. How did you deal with those fears and doubts that may have crept in, or did they, with you?
Oh my goodness, definitely. I think part of it was being, at Procter & Gamble, you're surrounded by people like you, so we're all in the same comfortable, as you said, like a good job that we enjoy, and everyone's sort of focused on the promotion and the salary, and everybody has the same fears. So being in that world, people said I was really brave to be going to South America for 3 months. As soon as I got there, as I said, I met people who'd, either become unemployed or quit their jobs. They were traveling for 2 years. you know, that they were traveling for life. So my little 3 months seemed a bit pathetic compared to these huge life changes they were making. So that put it into perspective a little bit. I guess a couple of things. One was then going out to meet people. I always say find your tribe, in that I started going to a few of these sort of evenings and conferences with people, and it didn't really matter what the actual presentation was about. The presentations weren't always particularly helpful, but it was the people who went to them. So they were just like me. They'd expressed the same frustrations. They were in good jobs, somehow they didn't feel fulfilled, they were scared, and just meeting those people is incredibly reassuring to know that you're not alone. And the other thing I think is taking action. I think the best way to overcome the fear is to do something, anything. It can be a small step, but just sort of address it head on and take that little step is really helpful. So for me, as I said, the sabbatical obviously was a step, and since then I've taken lots of little steps to move me forward.
Taking action, I love that, absolutely. Which almost answers my next question. Do you ever procrastinate? And if you do, how do you start taking action?
I definitely procrastinate. Yeah, I'm going to sign up to your course, I think. The good thing for me is I have so many projects. If I'm procrastinating on one project, it means that I'm moving forwards on another one. And I think to some extent, you know, you need to go where your energy is. So I love writing, and sometimes I can sit down and I can write a blog post in 10 minutes and it's amazing and it does well and whatever. And then other times I know I have to write something and I just can't. So there, you just need to, you know, it's not like I have in the morning I'm really on it and then in the afternoon I'm not. It's very random. So I just have to feel a little bit, you know, and be flexible, I suppose. But other than that, as I said, lean into it, just do it. So if there's that book, I've read a lot of time management books, and one, you know, is Eat That Frog. So you should start with like the thing that you're most resistant to, and the biggest thing you should start with, which is really unappealing, but it's the feeling when you've achieved that, you know, it wasn't as bad as you thought, you've done it, and then you can enjoy the rest of the day. So that's quite a good one that works for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And most people have that sort of aha moment in their life where a little bulb or little idea light sort of goes off there, and they change their path in their life, and they never go back to the old way. What was your sort of aha moment?
Well, I think in a way I sort of disagree. I think, you know, some people do have a big event. You know, sometimes it can be, unfortunately, a negative event, you know, and you know, you're unemployed, you know, there's a death or an illness or a divorce or something, and that's a huge turning point. And I run these Fearless Fridays interviews with people who've quit their jobs to start their own business or change career. And in my own experience too, I think it's often more of a gradual process. So as I said, there was this kind of, for me, there was an underlying feeling that it wasn't what I wanted to do. I took some time out. Then I thought, okay, I'm going to quit and I'm going to start my own business. And then after that, you know, there's sort of a next step. So it was never, you know, the things I'm doing now weren't necessarily the things that I quit my job to do in a way. It's just kind of evolved naturally. So I think in a way it's good, because more and more people are having this, I guess in a way, an aha moment before it gets too late, before there's a big tragedy in the family or something, because that's often when people remember, wow, life is short and I need to do something, you know, more meaningful with my life. So I think the people I'm coaching and the famous millennials are coming and already want to find purpose and meaning. I think that's great that they, you know, they go out into the world with that as an intention, rather than waiting until some tragedy happens and then turning their life around. So yeah,
I suppose I'm just going off my own experience. I had a few things going in my life, and it was just, my God, okay, what do I do now? And you just sort of, you go along in this type of depression for a while, and then you think, well, hang on, I have to do something, and then something else happens, and it pushes you further towards what you're supposed to be doing. It took me a long time, but in my experience, it was just this little aha thing that happened. I thought, right, this is time to change. But I certainly understand what you're saying, as far as a lot of people don't have that. They just, it's a gradual thing, and they just build up to it, and understand that.
Maybe it's many different aha moments, because one thing I realized was I thought it would be, I've quit my job, that's my big decision for life, and now I'm going to live happily ever after. And actually it's not like that. And I see other people, you're sort of hit with a harsh reality of, oh, it's not like you just quit your job and then suddenly you're on the beach with your pina colada and your laptop and you're earning six-figure income, as all these amazing coaches promise. So I think, you know, you have the big aha of like, okay, I'm going to quit my job. Freedom, hooray. And then it's a bit of a roller coaster of, oh, like you said, depression, what on earth do I do now? It's not what I thought. and then it's sort of up again, oh, this is looking promising, and then you have dips. And I think that's the kind of entrepreneurial change, whatever you want to call it, sort of roller coaster of emotions. So I think it's many moments, and it's not going to be one decision that then flips your life around, but each decision is important along the way.
Yeah, all these little stepping stones. Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned before you do a lot of writing. What's your favourite thing to write about?
Well, I guess I always dreamed of writing a novel, and it's become much more, as I said, I'm blogging. So I started off travel blogging when I first went to South America, and that kind of evolved into exploring my own career choices and the meaning of life and all these things. And that's what then brought me to the coaching. And I love that. I love sort of just, reading an article or having a conversation with someone, and then it makes me think, that becomes a what if or how to kind of article. So I guess it's sort of semi-autobiographical, philosophical. I don't know. I'm quite bad with writing for an audience, because I write what's interesting to me, which I know as a marketing person, I should be looking at my target audience and writing things that helps them. But hopefully people are in a similar situation to me and appreciate sort of that kind of writing as well. And it's been great to connect with people over the years who are, random people around the world who read the blog and who say that they feel exactly the same. That's a really nice response to get. So that's what I'm enjoying at the moment. Which
I think is great. I mean, I try and do that. I just write what's in my heart, basically. And I read somewhere, I think it was might have been Seth Godin or James Altucher, I think, or one of them wrote that don't write for your audience, just write for yourself, and your audience will find you, basically, which is a really interesting way of looking at it, I thought. If you're honest, you put it out there, rather than try and, pick your audience, just pick what you want to write about, just your life, basically, I guess, and just be honest and put it out there, and they'll all find you. So I thought that was a really... Yeah. I like that sort of thought. Yeah, I thought, okay. I know the marketing gurus probably, say, no, you've got to find your audience first and then just write to them and what they want. But yeah, it's interesting.
Well, I guess there is a whole trend of being, the word authentic is a bit overused, but I still love it. I mean, being sort of true to yourself, being vulnerable. We talk about, doing live video. It's not going to be as slick as if you've recorded and edited and so on, but I think people relate to that. And I think if you're sharing your own struggles, that's the best way to connect with the audience. So,
yep, absolutely. Now, can you tell us a little bit about your three businesses, if you don't mind? Just
Sure. Yeah. We've talked a little bit about it. I mean, as I said, so my time at Procter & Gamble was in marketing, and I gradually specialised in digital marketing. Although sort of the traditional brand building piece was always a core of that. So that was the first business that I started. As I said, when I incorporated Crocus Communications, it was just, in a way, a continuation of what I've been doing, but working with other companies. So consulting and coming in more for sort of a contractual period, which was great because it meant that I could bring the expertise I'd had from Procter & Gamble, but also on my side, learn new industries, learn new types of brands and products and so on. So that's been great. You mentioned the Wolf Leaders Academy with my friend. That's with my business partner, who's also a colleague from Procter & Gamble, Serena De Maio. And we sat together, I think we were skiing, and we sat with a napkin, the classic sort of entrepreneurial thing. We're going to start a business. And we sat down and had a few ideas. And this one came to the fore, and I think it's a really strong idea that, we want to teach everybody what we wish we had known 10 years ago, in a way, when we started out in our jobs. I think a lot of corporate onboarding is very corporate in a way, and it's focused on more the hard skills. It's quite slow and it takes time to learn things, and actually there's a lot of soft skills and tips and advice that we want to give new graduates to help them thrive. And I think, in a way, ironically, that kind of ties in with my other work of people leaving the corporate world, because there is now at the moment this disconnect. And again, I mentioned the millennials, but I think it's not just millennials, it's all of us. We want to feel fulfilled and have that training and development. We want a good boss who's looking after our career. We want to, all these things that we want to do. And likewise, the companies are struggling with retaining talent. So helping both the companies give the new graduates what they need, but also making sure that the new managers are developing to their full potential as well. So we've written a book, which is exciting. So How to Succeed in Your First Job, which is on Amazon now. And we're also running training workshops with companies to train up their young managers.
Yeah, I saw that on your website there, and I love the name, the Wolf Leaders Academy. It's just a great name. I reckon. I love Wolf.
We love the name. We had the idea, and we literally mocked up the website and the logo, in a couple of days. I think potentially it could be seen as being as aggressive, but I think, a wolf it's also it's a leader of a pack. There's a lot of collaboration there as well. So we're not talking about this kind of 1980s alpha leader businessman. It's a much more sort of modern kind of leader, well-rounded. So and yes, and the third one we've talked, I guess, about, but the career coaching, really. I mean, it started as I said, just about reading about sort of coaching and exploring my own process, I guess. But I loved it so much that I've sort of added that into the mix as well now. So mainly focusing on coaching people who were in my situation 3 years ago. So in a soul-destroying corporate job, wanting to leave, but maybe often not knowing what it is they want to leave to. So a bit like me, they're not this. And they need clarity on, what are my strengths and skills and passions, and what's going to be best as a next step for me. And then also getting into action, as we said, overcoming all those fears that we have.
Yeah, beautiful. I was just going to say, any of the guys have any questions, by the way, just start typing into the chat there, and we'll get to those eventually. Anything comes up, just whack it in the chat there. Now, do you have a morning routine, Anna?
Oh, it's an interesting one. I guess if there is a routine, what I did this morning was I got up, went for a run, shower, breakfast, and then I get to work. But I think every day is different for me, which makes the routine really difficult. So at the moment, I'm relatively stable for a few weeks, and it's quite easy to follow that. But otherwise, if I'm traveling, it could be either that I'm 2 weeks alone, as I said, in my Airbnb, just typing away, and it could also be a week of road tripping with a friend and not having any kind of stability at all. I think when I first quit as well, I was really rebelling against the routine and the structure. So, initially I didn't want to set the alarm. I didn't want to have any obligations at all, which is one extreme of the freedom. And now I'm finding that balance. So I guess I'm trying to find a way that I have some kind of structure and routine. So I'm not constantly reinventing the wheel and missing important things, I suppose. But still having that flexibility and freedom, which I love so much. So it's a work in progress, I guess. But
understand. And are you a meditator? Do you like meditating?
No, I'm not. As I said, I run, and that's quite meditative in a way. I don't listen to music or anything, so I just enjoy, and especially traveling, it's amazing. I was running in Japan and Hawaii, and it's just such a nice way of exploring a city or an area. I did try this Headspace meditation app, and I realise now you asked me about it that I haven't used it in a few weeks. So it doesn't come naturally to me, but it's on the radar for something that I think could be interesting. Yeah. I do yoga as well. Yoga mostly for the physical, because I had a running injury from running too much, which is a bit of a surprise for me because I don't think I run very much. But the yoga is more for stretching. But of course, that's also quite a nice, relaxing break from sitting at your computer.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So some of the best places you do a lot of traveling. Some of the best places you've travelled to, what would you recommend?
Oh, it's so hard. People ask me that, and I love everything. I wrote on that South America trip. South America actually was high on my list, and Machu Picchu. I'd watched this. I don't know if I love Disney, but this Disney Pixar Up film where they go off to paradise, and they fly off into the sunset. Whatever, that was sort of my goal there. And when I was there, I wrote a bucket list, which mostly consisted of travel. So it's a lot of the obvious stuff. Like, I think the big wonders of the world, there's a reason why they're so high on people's bucket list, right? So it's maybe cliched, but they are beautiful places that you want to see. So there's lots of those in there. And otherwise, it's really the people you meet, though. It's those random, encounters. It's an evening of meeting a group of people in a bar or something. It's going to some strange restaurant that you wouldn't have found if you hadn't met this local person. It's more those things that I remember. The setting is what you see in the photos, I guess, but it's the people who you remember.
Yeah. And obviously Australia's high on your list, Anna, of course.
So, Australia.
Obviously,
I
Australia's
love Australia.
high on your list.
Sydney's one of my favourite places in the world. It's just unfortunately very far away. New Zealand too. It's stunning. I love Lord of the Rings, which probably it's a bit stereotypical, but it's a beautiful part of the world. My family, my sister and my niece and nephew are here in England. My parents. It's very hard to be so far away. So I did go to Australia and New Zealand a couple of years ago. But if you could just come a bit closer to Europe, that would be great.
We are working on that.
Reform Pangea.
So obviously you're someone that needs to really manage their time. What's some of your best time management tools?
I think maybe the one thing is using the calendar. So, sort of transforming your to-do list into meetings in your calendar. It's so easy to not deliver on things that you're the only person who is expecting them, right? So if I'm doing, we talked about your course, if you're doing a course, nobody else knows about it, you could take a year to do it, right? So I think you need to set yourself deadlines. My business partner really holds me accountable there, so that helps both in terms of our Wolf Leaders, but also on the other ones we sort of coach each other in a way, which is great. So having sort of an accountability partner. But yeah, blocking the time in your calendar, because if I have a phone call, if I'm chatting to you live at 9:30, I have to be here at 9:30. Whereas if I've said, I'm going to work on my webinar plan at 10, then it can quite easily become 10:30, 11, and so on. So I think trying to treat yourself as if you were another person, have a meeting with yourself, and then you need the discipline to actually stick to it, of course.
And do you have something I want to ask you? Do you have people working for you, or it's just you and your business partner?
Yeah, it's just us really. I mean, I've tried out having a virtual assistant, but I think my businesses just aren't stable enough for that. It's not systematic enough for me to be able to sort of scrape off, this is the stuff that someone else can do. So each month I was sort of going, I don't know what to give her. So I think once it kind of stabilizes, it'll be easier to skim off the obvious things that are, I know this works, so then she can manage the social media, whatever it is. In terms of the digital marketing also, I mean, I do bring in people when I need to, like a copywriter or graphic designer and so on, but I don't have the ambition to create a big digital agency. I don't want to have lots of, employees and have their careers and their family livelihood depend on my business. Part of the reason is, for me, the company is more a vehicle to have this freedom and flexibility rather than creating a big new company, I guess.
Yeah, I understand that. Now, this is one of my little pet loves, which is the comfort zone, getting out of your comfort zone. What advice would you give to someone who is really struggling? They might be in a bit of a rut. They know they need to change, but they're not quite there yet. What kind of advice would you give them to give them that real shove in the back to push them forward?
I'm not sure if a shove is productive. My whole concept is about the one step outside, which is, everything you've ever wanted is one step outside of your comfort zone. And I think rather than taking a big leap and putting pressure on yourself to change everything in one day, taking one step, and it could be, it could be researching some area, it could be sending an email or booking a coffee with just something that feels like, do something, anything that moves you a little bit forward. And I think that creates momentum then to do another thing and another thing, and then before you know it, you've made huge progress. I guess another thing is, if you're really stuck, sort of recognize what your comfort zone is giving you, because it's not getting out of your comfort zone for the sake of getting out of your comfort zone. There's probably a reason why you're feeling comfortable there, and if you can explore those things and see if you can, the security and stability which may be important to you, if you can bring that with you, and as I said, you don't have to take a leap into the far out danger zone, miles and miles away from the comfort zone. You can sort of just take a little step out and then come back again, and you can push it a little bit, and so I think, don't give yourself a hard time and say, I should be able to do this really crazy, dangerous thing. I think, recognize that there's a reason why you're comfortable in the comfort zone. That's why it's called the comfort zone, and see if you can have both, I suppose, keep that comfort, but also challenge yourself and try different things. Yeah.
It's just funny because a friend of mine the other day actually rang me. He's not part of my comfort zone group, but he's just a friend, and he said, Kev, look, I watch your videos and I see you on Facebook, blah, blah, blah. And so the other day I was on a plane, and I decided to sit in a seat that wasn't mine as I boarded the plane, just to see what would happen. And I was petrified, and I just sat down in this seat in, I think it was either business or first class or somewhere. And eventually the air steward came along and said, can I see your ticket? And she sort of showed it to him. And he said, look, you're in the wrong seat there. So she said, okay, no worries, I'll just go and move. And but she felt great just doing that, just a little test for herself, just to do something different, basically. And I guess it's those small things that it doesn't need to be like a huge, going on a bungee jump or whatever, which I haven't even done that myself yet. I don't plan on doing it. But it doesn't need to be like a huge, big thing, just something small to just take these little small baby steps and slowly sort of get out there. So I know what you're saying there, absolutely. So what was the best piece of advice that anybody ever gave you? And that can be in relation to anything. Yeah.
I think in a way I can't think of a specific piece of advice, and I tend to listen to everybody, which can be quite exhausting and confusing. I tend to be very open to other people's, advice or opinions or experiences, I guess. So I think it all just becomes an amalgamation of information in my head, and then I kind of find my way through it. So it's great because I am open to a lot of different thoughts and new opportunities, but it is tough, whether it's, marketing and I don't know, someone saying you should do a webinar, you should do a podcast, you should do, sort of being torn in these different directions, and also in your personal life. So I'm working on, I guess this is what these last few years have been, coming back to what I want and being more intentional, and then, listening a bit more objectively to other people's advice and maybe taking it, maybe not.
Yep, understand. So who or what has had the biggest influence on you throughout your life?
I don't know. It's a good question, I guess. I think, again, everybody I meet in a strange way, because sometimes it's been, a stranger I've had lunch with and at work or something, and they've given me some nugget that sort of, that's what happened with the sabbatical, I think, for example. It's just, well, why don't you go? I thought, why don't I go? And that's enough to head off. And, after I quit, I had a chat with a guy I went to see, friends putting on a musical in Basel, and a guy there was just chatting away about his career transition, and that also pushed me, but sort of encouraged me to take the next steps. It's those little encounters along the way, I think. But of course, I would also say my family. I've been very lucky to have an incredibly loving and supportive family, both when I was growing up and also now. So that's, I'm sure, the biggest influence on me.
Okay. And just getting back to your businesses, is there one of them that you, and I guess they're like kids in a way, having these businesses, is there one that you love more than the other two, or the three of them really, you just love them all?
I love all my little children. Yeah, you can't choose one. I guess, as I said, they've sort of grown out organically. The digital marketing is something I'm good at. It's something I've enjoyed doing. It's something, that I guess is an edge in the industry, and I want to continue doing it. So that's definitely sort of a piece that's still there. I kind of neglected that a little bit as I was setting up the other two, and I missed it a bit, so I brought that back. And the other two, I'm really passionate about this whole coaching, mentoring, training area. So whether it's going into companies and training the individuals there, or working with people who are wanting to quit and so on, I think I love that piece too. So unfortunately, that's a bit of a challenge, because it is quite tough to manage the three, certainly at the same level, and they're all three quite new as well. So obviously they all almost need full-time investment, really, of my time and energy, which I can't give. So I think it's a slower process than it would be if you're doing one thing. But I also thrive on, as I said, dipping into different things and so on. So it's for now, at least, they're kind of even. And sometimes, when I'm working on a book, for example, that will take precedence, and the other things will just sort of simmer along, and then there'll be suddenly an influx of coaching, and then so it's again a bit of a roller coaster, I guess.
It's interesting, because you're going against the trend in a way. All the gurus say, look, just focus on the one thing. People like Dan Pena and a few other people, they say just focus on the one thing, otherwise you won't be a success. But you seem to be doing it very well, so that's great. Well,
I think that's true, and I think it is one thing at a time, is definitely, and I think you can't multitask. I think that's important, but it's also recognizing, this is, I guess, called a portfolio career, and I do talk to a lot of people who have several sides to their interest and their skills, and it may be that they're great in social media, but there's something, someone wants to be a massage therapist, or they love photography, and that could be a hobby, but it could also become sort of a side hustle, as they call it, and it could be that you then become a yoga instructor and whatever it is, or you're most of these sort of in the coaching area, you're not just coaching, you're speaking, you're teaching, you're writing. So in a way, it becomes a portfolio career in and of itself as well. But I think you need to sort of recognize that if you're the kind of person who has all these interests and things, it's probably going to be a more fulfilling career for you if you can find a way to sort of leverage more of those and not just niche into one little area.
Absolutely. And I think you've given us little sort of tidbits along the way there. What would be your secret to success, or secrets, if there's more than one?
If they're secret, I can't tell you.
Exactly. Okay, next question.
I think the first thing is defining what success is, because I think, again, I reference the sort of 80s power suit kind of era, and that's, I guess, what comes to mind when I say the word success. But if I had that, I don't think I would feel successful. That's not, being CEO and having a big house and Aston Martin, driving an Aston Martin is on my bucket list, but not only one, but having the beautiful sports car and all these things. I think that's in a way sort of the traditional, American dream height of success, and that's for many of us not success. So I think getting really clear on what success looks like for you is key to knowing that you've achieved it and to working towards the right thing. And I guess I think the second thing would be persistence. I think a lot of us give up too soon, and it's just a question of sort of slogging through the hard bits. Just keep going, and you're probably, just when you give up, you're sort of a week away from that breakthrough. So you just have to. It's going to be hard, but totally worth it. I think if you've defined it, and then if you work hard to get it, it's hard to fail.
That's a great answer. Thank you. What's the biggest mistake you've ever made? And we all make mistakes. And what did you learn from it?
That's a great question. I've had that so many times the last few weeks, and I can never think of one big mistake, which I think is a mistake in itself, because I think it's, it's so important to fail, and it's so important to make mistakes and learn. And unfortunately, I think I've maybe been quite careful. I mean, now in the last few years, I've taken bigger risks with quitting my job without a plan and all these things. So I guess I'm getting more adventurous, but I don't think I've taken that kind of risk along the way, unfortunately. So I've gone on this kind of conveyor belt of making quite easy choices and just sort of not really thinking about what I really wanted to do and going out to try to do it. So I think my mistake is not making enough mistakes.
Yeah, that's a good answer too, actually. I like that. It's excellent. Now, if you could go back in time, and I'll borrow this question from Brian Rose from London Real, who's a very good interviewer. If you go back in time, what advice would you give to the 20-year-old Anna?
Well, I think the problem is that the 20-year-old Anna doesn't listen to, you don't listen to adults' advice when you're younger. You think you know better. So I think giving advice probably wouldn't have made any difference. But I think the making more mistakes is definitely one of them. Not listening so much or not caring so much about what other people think. And not getting so much stuff. I was thinking of this. I feel like I spend my life just like decluttering and getting rid of stuff. And I went through a phase when I first got a salary and I just bought things. When I was in Australia, in fact, I bought like nice little pillows and cups and just tap really. And it's just stuff. And I think it's life, life is more about the experiences and so on. And I think it would be simpler if I didn't have so much crap everywhere. So that's what I'm working on. Yeah. So if I listen to that would be helpful.
I think we can all relate to that, actually. Anna, yes. Get rid of the junk out of your life. Now, what do you set goals for yourself?
Yes, I guess so. I mean, I do sort of implicitly in a way. I think I'm constantly setting goals in a way without necessarily calling them goals. Learning and sort of personal development is one of my key values as well. So I'm constantly, doing a course or trying to make the business grow in some way. So I'm unfortunately never sort of resting and celebrating wins, really. I'm constantly looking to the next thing. But I'm also not so good at setting specific goals at the moment, partly because I think it's just kind of rolling on organically, and I like the way it's going, and there is no reason to, set, I have to have done this by that time and so on. So it's quite nice to just let it flow and see how it goes for now.
Yeah, absolutely. So in 12 months' time, where is Anna Lundberg going to be, and what's she going to be doing?
I mean, hopefully more of the same. So hopefully these three businesses, are more, as I said, sort of systematic and sustainable, bringing in the steady income stream. At the moment, as I said, it's quite a roller coaster on all fronts. So you just never know from one day to the next. And I think having those a bit more established would be great. I am, after traveling a lot now, feeling a bit of a sort of yearning for a home. So probably I'll be stabilizing a little bit there, having more of sort of a resting point to at least have as a base. So maybe a little bit less travel. but otherwise, yeah, more of the same. I'm loving everything I'm doing, and hopefully it will continue, but who knows what's around the corner, I guess.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. The world's a funny place at the moment, that's for sure. So as far as somebody who just wanted to go out and maybe he's just left school, or maybe he's in his early 20s and he's been working for a company, he wants to go out on his own, start a business, what advice would you offer somebody like that?
I think that's an interesting one, because a lot of people are coming out of university now and want to go straight into business, which is obviously an experience I haven't had. And I think great and good for them, but perhaps they're a bit optimistic. And the reality is that most of those businesses will fail, but they'll learn amazing things and it'll be a great experience. I think the way I've done it in terms of having the corporate experience first has been a huge enabler, apart from the contacts and network that you have, just learning, I guess, all the soft skills of sort of, I don't know, presenting, working with teams, leadership and all those things. But also for me, the brand building framework and the marketing and everything has just been invaluable. And I think I knew nothing of that when I came out of university or school. The sort of mentoring I do with people who are starting up their own companies straight out of school, university, they just have no idea. And they can be super ambitious, they can have a great idea, but they just don't have that knowledge, which is fine as long as they recognize that and then go out and get that help. But I think recognize where your expertise is and isn't, and make sure you're getting the guidance, so that to make the most of your amazing idea. I'm sure it's a great idea, but usually it's in the execution, so make sure you have the support that you need, I think, would be the best advice.
Yeah, and I think definitely asking for help, because that's one thing for years that I didn't do myself. I tried to do things on my own, and if I failed, I thought, okay, I'll just start again doing something else, and I failed at that. And the key was asking for help. That was I don't know whether it was fear or what it was. But obviously, it was a bit of fear there, just shyness, all that kind of thing. And I think asking for help and having an accountability buddy are probably two of the best things you can do as far as that kind of thing goes. So yeah,
that's huge. I think asking for help, I'm bad at that too. I feel like I need to do everything by myself, and I think that is a mistake. So definitely swallowing your pride and asking, and most people are happy to help. So
yeah, it's amazing when you just ask someone. Because the years I thought, no one will help me, basically, but once you do ask, it's amazing that people just so helpful, and I'll do that for you. No worries. Wow, fantastic. Okay, last little question tonight, Anna. What is your biggest fear in your life, or do you have a biggest fear?
What's my biggest fear? I guess, I am such a cliche, but sort of having regrets and looking back and thinking, why didn't I? If only, and So I think I guess my feeling is that we've been given this time on Earth for whatever reason, who knows why. But the truth is, I have this time, and I want to make the most of it. This is why I'm a little bit manic. I want to see everything. I want to do everything. I want to just make the most of it. So for me, taking those risks and making the mistakes, I suppose, meeting people, saying yes, just experiencing as much as I possibly can of life and Earth. It sounds very woo-woo from me, but it's just making the most of it. So my fear is, I guess, not doing that. And at the moment, I'm definitely, I don't feel I have regrets. When I look back on so-called mistakes, I do feel I've learned things, and I can't and won't change them. So I think if I can just continue learning and having amazing experiences, meeting fantastic people, seeing beautiful places, then that's all I can ask for.
It's a pretty good life. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not bad.
Fantastic. Yeah. Now, how can people contact you if they want to say hi, or perhaps talk about business with you? How can they contact?
Yeah, well, I've just discovered, I think, that if you Google quit your job, then my article is the first one that comes up, which is a bit worrying. But definitely if you Google Anna Lundberg, all my platforms will come up. On Facebook, the page is One Step Outside. I'm also actually working on a group program, which is at onestepoutside.com. But otherwise, Anna Lundberg. Yep. Everywhere, on Twitter, Instagram, all the good places.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you, Anna, for that. Really appreciate your time. And if it's okay, I've got a couple of questions here from people on the call, if that's okay.
Sure, I'll do my best.
I'll run those past you. Now, this is from Ben, who's over there in England. What obstacles and fears did you face when having your mini aha moments and considering quitting your good, comfortable job? He says here, I think I'm having those mini aha moments, but I'm finding it hard to take action on this.
Mm. Oh, so many fears. And I think the biggest one is fear of failure. But I think it's just not very well defined for most of us. So I think it helps to look at what does failure mean, and that comes back to defining success. Because if success is, let's say in my case, becoming CEO at Procter & Gamble in marketing and blah, 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 then yes, okay, quitting my job is a failure. But if success is living this fulfilled life and seeing the world and having time to see my family and friends, then actually staying on at Procter & Gamble is a failure. So I think, defining success and therefore being able to sort of reframe failure is a huge one. What else? Fear of the money thing, I guess, is something that always comes up. So that's we talk about these wonderful things in traveling, but it does cost money. And as much as money is not one of my top values, it's still, I do need to live. So if that's a fear, making sure that you can cut down on your spending, you can find ways to, I don't know, sell stuff on eBay and so on at sort of the margin of it, but having a plan for, this is how much I need to earn in the next 6 months. If it's not working by this time, I need to have this backup plan and so on. So I guess fear of failure, the money thing, those are the biggest ones that come up.
Yep, cool. Thank you for that.
Hope that helps, Ben.
And he's also written, Kev, a bungee jump would make a good comfort zone video. Not going to happen, Ben.
Yeah. Oh, come on. I did 3. I did 3 bungee jumps in New Zealand. I was 18, so it's a while ago. But so yeah, it's a great experience.
Look, I'm sure I'm scared of heights, though. I had this.
Well, you get lower, when you bungee jump, you be lower down.
You do. Look, one day I'll do it. I'm just not sure when that'll be, but I know I'm the comfort zone man, but that's just same as a parachute. Ooh, bit hard for me. This is from Lissa over in Estonia. And do you think that you are successful? If yes, when did you first realise that? And if not, why? Where is the line for you between the people who are successful and who are not successful?
I think that's such a good question, and it's so hard to say. And I think it does come back to this, and I keep saying it, but sort of defining what success is for you, and therefore it's hard to judge other people's success because, you can look at these big, I don't know, like Oprah, I would say successful, Richard Branson, there's these big guys, but there's also, a fisherman by the sea who enjoys his life and has a great family and is happy. So I think it's to do with what success is for you. For me, it's something I think about all the time. And as I said, I have redefined it since I left. And I think, whereas before I would have thought that the title head of blah, blah, blah was important, and the high salary and the swanning around at offsites and fun things and so on probably was part of my success picture. That's not there anymore. So I've sort of, I don't want to say lowered, but changed my expectations. But there is no line, unfortunately. As I said, I'm constantly raising the bar and challenging myself more and developing more. So, a year ago, I would have been super happy with having established my coaching business, let's say, but now I'm already thinking, oh, how can I grow it? How can I do this? How can I do that? So I think I definitely need to learn how to, as I said, pause and recognize the achievements I've made and be happy with that and see that as success. Because it's so easy otherwise to just kind of, this year, my goodness, 2016, I don't know what's happened, it's just gone. I feel like I've done amazing things, but it's just zoomed by. So I think you don't want your life to pass you by, I think. So stopping and smelling the roses, I think, is key.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Great answer, Anna. Thank you for that. From Radcar, how many hours a day do you work?
I should probably track that because I'm incredibly self-motivated, and I feel, and I know I work in a way harder than I did when I was in the corporate job. But at the same time, I also do a lot of fun things. And as I said, sometimes I have lions, I do, yoga, I go shopping and so on. So actually it's hard to say. I'd say probably, oh no, it's very hard to say. For example, I was in the US this summer, and as I said, I was a few weeks just in an Airbnb by myself. And some days I'll just get up, I'll work, and I will work, at 8, I think, oh, I should watch a film or something. It's like, no, I want to write this blog post, and I'll just work until like 10, 11, until I go to bed. So some days I will just work nonstop, and then other days I won't even touch my computer. So it's, it's very unstable. But I guess that the more important question is, how do I feel about it? And I don't feel like I'm working too hard, but I also don't feel like I'm just slacking off. So I think that's the sort of happy medium between making sure that I'm getting the work done but also having the time with my family and friends. That is part of the reason why I quit in the first place.
Actually, you sound very similar to me, I've got to say. Yeah, I just sort of get up, do my little morning routine, do some exercise, and then I'll come and play on the computer for a while, and then if I've got something on, I'll go and do that. It's nice to have that sort of, there's sort of stress there, I guess, but it's not really, you're not sitting by a clock sort of thing and really and counting the hours before you knock off. You just, I'll work of an evening as well, and I think if you love what you do, then that's the important.
Yes,
I just love what I do.
That's key. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think if you think of a corporate job, certainly our job, we had so many meetings, and you go for coffee breaks, and you chat with the person next to you and so on. If you actually think of, even though you're in the office all those hours, you're not necessarily working that effectively. And if you're at home, as you said, Kevin, working on your passions first of all, but also just working concentrated, I can do what I would usually do in a day or two at work, I can now do in 2 or 3 hours. So it's more concentrated in a way. But because I love it, and because I'm just focused on that with no distractions, I get it done much, much more quickly.
Beautiful. I hope that answers your questions there, guys. Any other questions? I think that's it for the time being. Beautiful. Okay, we've done well. We got through, and it's good timing, actually. So thank you, Anna. Really appreciate that. You've come along, and I wish you all the best. And yeah, I'm actually very inspired by you, because you've got these 3 companies, and you just, my little motto for my website and my group is push, grind, grow. And you just keep constantly pushing, you keep just grinding away without sort of going overboard, and just and the growing sort of happening. So it really inspired me, and I'm sure you've inspired the guys on the call. So thank you.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been really fun. Thank you, Ben, Radka, and Lisa, for your questions as well. Good luck with your own journeys.
Yeah, absolutely.